Hi friends, I have a quick update on the settings that we did or the code changes that we did to unsubscribe opt out of the wants digest. So what I did was I went to the database, and within the users table I removed the wants digest column. We do not see it anymore. And then in the preference page I made sure that we had our preferences true or false set to there. And then I also checked that over here we have the user ID to auth user ID foreign key relation with the users table. Uh, so everything looked good. However, when I was running the application or running the cron job, I was getting these two errors here, and it would say error fetching users could not find a relationship between preferences and users in the schema table. So when I asked this to ChatGPT, and I think I'll get this. So yeah, this is the ChatGPT suggestion. So ChatGPT told us we need to add the foreign key. So we did the alter table preference. So I did that. I went into the SQL editor and I put in the constraint to add a reference to the user ID on the users table from the preference table. And at that point I got an error message, and that error message was that the pref already exists. Now to that, this constraint already existed within the system, so that gave I put that in ChatGPT, and at that point ChatGPT mentioned there are two things. The Supabase schema is stale, that means the schema is not refreshed, and number two, we can write a different way of writing the query. Instead of directly referring to the preferences and getting the users associated with it, we have to create two explicit join queries, and then explicit join with two queries, and then use that later on in the code. I tried to go to the first option to refresh the schema, so I went into the system and went to the database. We have the schema visualizer. As you can see, the preference table has a auth user ID, but it's not connected to the user ID of the user. So I thought maybe that can be updated. Something that I think maybe in effect in other tables as well. So for the goals, even this user ID is connected to the auth user ID. So I think that one submissions has an ID, and then the user ID is the public user.id. So I want to, let's see if we can is there any way to edit column, and then it is going to be the user ID, primary key, and constraint. This is the constraint, and then we need to have the foreign key, add a foreign key, public users submission, public users ID, and okay, then I can cancel this one. So now I know. Now I think we resolved this in that way. So now when we go to preferences, the constraint that we have is not with the public, it is going to be the auth users ID, and we want to change it to the schema would be public, and the table would be users, and the public users ID. That's what we are going to save it to. So when we save it, it will be associated to the public's user ID, and we save this. And then number 3, again with the goals, instead of the goals being connected to the auth user ID, again we would go and we would edit this, and we would edit the goals foreign keys, and instead of auth we would have public, and then we would have users, and in this one we'll connect it to the ID, and we'll save it. So this is going to give the foreign key with the public users, and save it. Now when we go to the database and we look at the schema, and we refresh the schema, this schema visualizer, and we refresh this page, we now look at goals and preferences. I think this needs to, this one now comes down to this one. It goes to the ID table over here, submissions over here. Goals now looks over here, looks feedback looks over here. So I think I can, we can, or let's look at the other tables as well. So feedback, there is ID, user ID. So let's look into that. We go to the tables and then we look into feedback. We have this public user ID, feedback is over here, goals, again auth users. So goals, we need to edit this. Let's edit the column. Let's change the, remove this auth users, and we save it. So now it is going to go to public users only. So we look at it, it is going to go to public users. Preferences is again showing auth users. So we need to remove the, we edited it, so we need to remove the auth users and only have the public users. Now submission is a public user, so it's going to connect to the user ID, and we have the users table. So now when I look into the database schema, when we look at the database schema, we'll visualize this, all of this auto layout. Let's refresh. All of these are connected to the user ID table, and that way we are able to connect all our feedback, goals, submissions and preferences to the user, individual user, and to the ID of the user. This will make the foreign key very, what do you call it, the foreign key can work properly. What I can do is I can go to the code. I had a working tree, so let me undo the commits. Right now we go to this one, we go to the branches, we go to the changes. Actually I want to see the history. Over here I don't see how to get it, but let's undo this. This is the old code. So if we look at the old code, now this is going to go to preferences, and then this is user ID, and it's going to go that it has removed the older double queries, and it has now made it very straightforward and simple, like the user's query. So let's do this and let's commit this change, and we would say here, instead of the preferences and then getting user ID, we would have a join here, and then later on we are going to loop through those users. So over here we are going to get the user array and then use it, and later on in the end we have this status unhandled error. So let's do reverted back to old query, and then we commit and sync. Let's try this step out. So this is synced. Let's look at the deployment. Now at this point we are sure that the relationships look good. So let's refresh, wait for 29 seconds, let it load. Yeah, 26 seconds. Okay, and (29 seconds) we were able to do it. Now when we look at the settings, so right now my I don't want to receive the weekly email digest. I save the preferences, they get saved. Now I will run the cron job, and in my emails I have these three emails which I tested a few minutes at 5:05. Right now the time is a little different, it's 5:16. So let's see if we get any emails now. So let me run the cron job. Let's view the logs. Initially we were getting, I had two successful entries. We should get a third successful now since the relationship has been created. So we'll wait for the cron job to run. Yeah, this has started. No, I didn't see any email coming in. Even the logs, like, I think it's hanged. So it just started. I don't see further changes in that. Usually, if you look at this, you start the handler and you would have email sent across. But here it's just starting the handler. So I don't see any. I don't see any further log entries. We can try another option. If this doesn't work, then we can end the cron job. Let's see what's the cron job status right now. We can try to run it again. Let's see. It's stuck over here again. I don't think it's going ahead. And the emails should be sent. Maybe there is some problem. Let's revert back to the older logic. For that, like we had a code written before. So the latest code we have is here, the two query logic. So we'll copy this and we'll bring it back to our code and send digest. So here we are not using the foreign key. I think the foreign key, we try to save it, but it doesn't, it may not be working correctly and may be causing some problems. So we'll commit this and we'll say to query approach, query join approach, and we'll save it and commit this one for this change. And once this is done, we should be able to see that in the deployments, and within 29 seconds we should be able to see the changes reflect. We haven't received any email since 5:05, so we'll keep it to that. Okay, 28 seconds, and then we don't have email sent, so let's send our cron job and have it run, and then view the logs and have it monitor live. Let's see. I think the relationship was taking a lot of time and confusion. With this two query approach, it won't go for the relationship, it will directly pull in the data and work on every email address. So let's see what changes. Yeah, I can see certain changes now. It did not send to Gap is God, it only sent to gaurav.palande147. So here I can do a synchronize all accounts, and I can see only for Gaurav.Palande 147. I can see only one at 520. I can do another test is I can check box this one, save the preferences, and then I can again run the cron job. So like periodically when the cron job will run, we can now run it manually, and we are going to view the logs, and that should send messages to Gapis God as well as Gaurav.Palande. So we'll wait for that to happen. So you can see here it has sent to Gapis God as well as Gaurav.Palande 147. So, and if you look at the emails, I see two emails now. One is for Gapis God and one is for Gaurav.Palande 147. Okay, so this feature looks like it's completed, and we can mark it as green now, or I would say just this much. Other things don't matter at the moment. So this feature is green. We'll keep it to that, and next video we'll try to see if we can do some monthly cron jobs instead of the weekly ones. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for being in this. It didn't work as we wanted it to work. The relationships look good, but may not be reflecting at the moment preferences and submissions and even feedback. They are dotted lines instead of being solid line. I think that may need to be refreshed, and after this maybe we would be able to use the old code. Otherwise we already had a backup code which we already committed in our files. So that one uses two queries. One query would be to get the users. So here in this one you would get the users, and before that you would go to the preference table and get the preferences and get the user ID. And if we have preferences, they are going to map every preference to the user ID and get the user IDs. And then for every user's ID you are going to query to the users table, get the user ID, and then if the user does not exist then we have a problem. Otherwise we'll get the history of the users from the submission table. So this one could have been, I will monitor it tomorrow to see if the schema refreshes, but if it refreshes then we would be able to simplify this to, instead of two queries we can simplify it to one. But if the schema does not refresh, then I think this one is keeping our application running. So I think we should be good on this. So thank you so much for being in this video, and hopefully you get to visit this website and work around with these preferences. Also don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you.